Hello, welcome to the fur review. I'm using a different camera device because the last one was like really speckly and I just looked really tired and orange. So I hope, God, I don't even think I'm looking in the right place. Sorry guys. Here we go. Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm a millennial and I'm still figuring out technology because I don't really like it. Okay. This is why I read books on paper, guys. Okay, this is why I'm using this because I don't know what's a good microphone in the world. Give me time. Okay, so yes, today I'm gonna do a third review of Bret Easton Ellis and his novels. I think I should look here. I think this is where I'm gonna look. I don't know what to say about this book. Also, I will point out I changed the perspective of my camera as well because I'm playing around with my desk and where I want it to sit. So anyways, but see, those are the bookshelves. I'm going to read all of them on this channel. No, probably not, but some of them, most of them come from there. Okay, so Lunar Park by Bret Easton Ellis, a national bestseller. I don't know what that means in comparison of a New York Times bestseller, but a national bestseller. That's the whole country. It's not just New York. But the New York Times did say that this book was addictive, sublime, exquisite, stirringly executed, a phantasmagoria. Well, that's a new word. Of love and loss, a fusion of hallucination and wisdom. And I would say yes. There was a lot of hallucination, and I don't know about wisdom, but I feel like the end, yeah, sure, there's some wisdom, there's some, a little bit of existentialism, a little bit, it kind of really pulled at my heartstrings. God, I gotta, think of, looking here. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really like this book. I did not like this book. I thought it was nothing that I thought it was going to be, and the end result was different. I thought it was creative, but it wasn't very... It was well written. Okay, Bret Easton Ellis definitely he knows how to put the words in the right order, string a sentence together. That was definitely obvious reading this book. The writing quality was great, okay? Also, another great thing about this book. Yeah, let's talk about the great things I liked about this book. This cover's cool. I like the gray. I like this orangey red, like moon kind of, I'm guessing, like lunar. Oh, it's also the full moon today. There you go. Meant to be. And this orangey on the back, you get a nice little picture of Bret right there. That's what he looks like. This book is about 400 pages, and it took me far too long to finish it. It felt like a chore. I feel so bad. Like, he's my favorite author, hands down. Him and probably, Hemingway. Take what you want with that. And, yeah, this was just different. It was different. It was different than the rest of his books. So, last time I reviewed The Shards, and The Shards was... also Bret Easton Ellis as the main character, and I really liked that about it because it kind of gave, you get to step inside of Bret Easton Ellis's mind, and at that point it's what he was like as a teenager and the things happening to him. And I think he just did The Shards so well. I can't say enough. I really did like The Shards. It's definitely a pivot. And I would say Lunar Park came out earlier than The Shards, so maybe he took it as a learning lesson. I don't really know what he did with it, but he's also the main character in Lunar Park, and that's why I did want to do the Shards review, because I thought oh, it's interesting that he is the main character himself in the Shards, but as an 18-year-old, and now he's a main character, I don't know, not as an 18-year-old. Okay, 40, let's say he's 42, 43, 44 in this, I don't know, something like that. Okay, let's just imagine that. And it's just different because it's not he's you get to know him, but you don't. And I think that's the different part. Like in the beginning, this book starts off with like, okay, he's a successful author now. He's traveling all over, he's writing his books, he's making deals, he's traveling the country, he's going on book tours, and he is, you know, he talks more like heavily about heavy drug use and drinking and being very sexually promiscuous with women. Like, he's actually straight in this book, which isn't, well, most of the time in this book. So, you know, it's definitely a different perspective of him as Bret Easton Ellis, and we get to see a different side to it, but it's like very much different pivot of like, I like that he was the main character and I thought that was really interesting. You get to learn the author more, but at the same time, you don't get to know him. He actually did change it to be something much more fictional, which the Shards was fictional, but there was something so much more believable in that book. So I'm not sure what happened between 2005 and 2023, but I think that was just a better book. It just, things came together. This one was just different. And the reason I've read this book was he mentioned it in, well, I was going to read it anyways. Like, I'm going to read all of Bret Easton Ellis books and I will review all of them eventually. And I promise the next one will not be a Bret Easton Ellis book. I promise. Maybe the one after won't be either, but I will eventually review all of them. Those are my personal goals. Okay. But he talks about this Lunar Park in White while he was writing Lunar Park, and he was saying that this was a time in his life where he was definitely using a lot more drugs, being much more promiscuous. He was forgetting where he was in places. Like, he's like, I didn't realize I ordered this food at this restaurant, talking to this person, talking about this deal. Like, he completely, like, it's almost like another life. He was like living another life he just wasn't conscious of. And I thought that was like, whoa, like, that's kind of an interesting perspective. I see how interesting. I see how that probably inspired him to write Glamorama. If you've read Glamorama, it's like somebody else is like living his life and pretending to be him. It's a good book. I'll review it sometime in the future. And so, but he was like writing Lunar Park halfway through, and then he also had a stalker at this time as well. And this stalker was causing some disruption in his life. I'm sure most stalkers are disruptive to most people's life that have them. I have not been so fortunate yet. Hopefully never. Fingers crossed, never. And he recalls the time he had to call the police about this and just explaining the situation that happened with the stalker. And he's like, don't you understand, this person is ruining my life? And then he's like, wait a minute, maybe I'm really ruining my life. Maybe I'm the one who's consuming all these drugs and making all these decisions and lining myself up with certain people and places and things and whatever. So from that whole kind of glimpse into what he was experiencing at that time, I was very curious to read Lunar Park. It was not at all what I expected it to be, and I think that's why I didn't really care for this as much. So Bret Easton Ellis, it starts off with him. Yes, he's on a book deal. He's heavy drug use, and kind of like this showing the success of these book deals, and also he talks about his father's death. And when his father dies, like, that's kind of where I think his life just pivoted in the story. Maybe in real life, but at least in this story. And he ends up hooking up with like his previous girlfriend. She gets pregnant. He doesn't want her to have the child. She has the child anyways. Time goes past. His drug use gets worse, and he doesn't think it's as bad, and it's like really bad. Apparently it's like he was impossible to work with. He was missing things, or he was like a very difficult client to work with. He just wasn't functional anymore because of his heavy drug use. And then he decides to marry his ex-girlfriend, the one he has a child with, Jane Dennis, who's a famous actress, and she also has another child from a different relationship. So now Bret Easton Ellis is a married man with a child and a stepchild, and trying to play like this father-husband role. And he fails at it. He's failing at it. Like, he doesn't ever stop doing drugs. He's drinking vodka, like a handle of vodka for breakfast. Like he's just trying to play a part that he's not meant to. And I think that's just maybe that's part of like the story. It's like you can't really play a role that you're just not meant to be. Like at the end of the book, he ends up in a relationship with a man and living with a man in New York City. Like he's like, maybe that's just like what I'm meant for. It's like, yeah, don't hide who you are. But I also wonder, because of all the heavy drug use, maybe this entire book was just a hallucination of what if his life was this way instead of. But as he's failing at being a family man, he's also a college professor, and he's trying to like have like an affair with one of the students that goes to his school. Not one of his students, but like she's like writing a dissertation on him, and he's really trying to get with her. I like her name though, Amy Light. Isn't that a great name? I think that's a good name. And that fails. And then there's somebody who's impersonating the murders that are in American Psycho. Somebody's like thinks he's Patrick Bateman, and so like they're like targeting all these murders that are happening in relation to the style and fashion that Patrick Bateman had attacked his victims. And then there's a series of young boys that are going missing that are around Bret Easton Ellis' son's age, who's 11 at this time. And Bret Easton Ellis has only been like in the picture for like 4 months at this point. So he's not like trying to figure out how to be a father. And then he's also living in the shadow of his father's death. And it's like he's seeing his whole childhood home, or like the current home he's living in, is turning into his childhood home. And he's seeing these weird things that happen. Then he hires a ghost hunter. And it's just like weird. It's weird. It like things definitely take off, and and then it ends. I will say the ending, like, yeah, I definitely did feel a little bit sad how it ended. He like the reflection of like his father and all this stuff, and then his son ends up. I don't want to ruin it. So there is just it was a very creative book. I thought the writing was really good. It was creative. It was a unique idea. For me, it just did not land. If you were ever going to ask me, hey, what Bret Easton Ellis book would you recommend? I would not recommend this one. I think if you read like Less Than Zero, The Rules of Attraction, American Psycho, you'll definitely get hooked. And I think eventually, if you become a huge fan like me, you're going to read Lunar Park, and then we can have a discussion and we can talk about like what you thought about it. I just don't think this is one I would immediately recommend to get you into reading Bret Easton Ellis books, but I think it was an interesting style, or an interesting idea, like a thought. But I definitely like his other books better. Like I think Glamorama was actually really good. I really did like The Shards as something unique, but like just on point. So I don't know. This seemed like more of an experiment, and I just not for me. Not for that. All right, let's get out of here. You guys have a great night. Enjoy the full moon. I'll see you again soon. Bye.